Magdi Habib Yacoub was born on 16 November 1935 in Bilbais, al-Sharqiya, Egypt to a Coptic family, and spent his childhood in a number of different small towns. His father was a surgeon, who later worked in public health. He died in 1958. Yacoub later recalled that both his father and the death of his youngest aunt at age 22 years from an uncorrected mitral stenosis during childbirth inspired him to study medicine and cardiology, saying that this young woman would not have died if we had had access to facilities which were then available in a few centers around the world. At the age of 15, he entered the University of Cairo College of Medicine with a scholarship. Magdi Habib Yacoub was born on 16 November 1935 in Bilbais, al-Sharqiya, Egypt to a Coptic family, and spent his childhood in a number of different small towns. His father was a surgeon, who later worked in public health. He died in 1958. Yacoub later recalled that both his father and the death of his youngest aunt at age 22 years from an uncorrected mitral stenosis during childbirth inspired him to study medicine and cardiology, saying that this young woman would not have died if we had had access to facilities which were then available in a few centers around the world. At the age of 15, he entered the University of Cairo College of Medicine with a scholarship. In 1957, Yacoub graduated in medicine from Cairo University and completed 2 years of residencies in surgery. In 1961 or 1962 he moved to Britain to study for his fellowship while working under Sir Russell Brock, consultant surgeon at Guy's Hospital. In 1964, he was appointed rotating surgical senior registrar to the National Heart and Chest Hospitals, where he worked with cardiothoracic surgeon Donald Ross. Here, they worked on repairing heart valves in people with severe valvular heart disease and heart failure. 4 of their cases, operated on between December 1965 and October 1967, were reported on in the British Medical Journal, 1968, in an article titled "Too Ill for Cardiac Surgery." 3 had severe aortic valve disease and 1 had rheumatic heart disease with multiple affected valves. All 4 had a poor prognosis with death expected within a few days, and all 4 survived surgery. He carried out a number of Ross procedures, where the diseased aortic valve is replaced with the person's own pulmonary valve, particularly in growing children. It became a popular alternative to the surgical treatment of aortic valve disease in young adults and avoided the need for anticoagulation and repeated operations. Yacoub modified the operation by planning remodeling of the autograft route, the Ross-Yacoub procedure, performed in carefully selected people, at a time when cardiologists may have been reluctant to refer for surgery. Yacoub's search for operable people earned him the name Magdi's Midnight Stars. Later, his application for a job at the Royal Brompton Hospital was turned down. In 1968, he moved to the United States, and the following year he became instructor and then assistant professor at the University of Chicago. 1973, he returned to England and became a consultant cardiothoracic surgeon at Harefield Hospital, West London, a previous sanatorium built during the First World War consisting of numerous small houses with interconnected corridors. He later recalled that, "I was tempted to stay in Chicago, as I was interested in the research they were doing there, but I had already accepted the position at Harefield before going to the US, so I was honor bound to return." At Harefield, he worked closely with Rosemary Radley Smith, consultant in pediatric cardiology. As a visiting professor to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Yacoub, Fabian Udekwu, Ch Anyanwu, and others formed part of the team that performed the first open heart surgery in Nigeria in 1974. In 1977, he devised a 2-stage approach for an arterial switch operation (ASO) in older people with transposition of the great arteries with an intact ventricular septum (IVS). Yacoub began the transplant program at Harefield Hospital in 1980 with a heart transplant for Derek Morris, who became Europe's longest surviving heart transplant recipient at his death in July 2005. 2 years later, he performed a heart transplant on John McCafferty, who survived for more than 33 years, until 10 February 2016, and became recognized as the world's longest surviving heart transplant patient by the Guinness World Records in 2013, surpassing the previous Guinness World Record of 30 years, 11 months and 10 days set by an American man who died in 2009. In December 1983, Yacoub performed the UK's first combined heart and lung transplant at Harefield. From 1986 to 2006, he held the position of British Heart Foundation Professor of Cardiothoracic Surgery at the National Heart and Lung Institute, Imperial College Faculty of Medicine. He treated a number of politicians and celebrities throughout his surgical career, including comedian Eric Morecambe in 1979, Greek Prime Minister Andreas Papandreou in 1988, and actor Omar Sharif in 1993. He retired from the National Health Service in 2001 at the age of 65. In 2006 he led a complex operation which required removing a transplant heart from a person whose own heart had recovered. The original heart had not been removed during transplant surgery nearly a decade earlier, in the hope it might recover. In April 2007, it was reported that a British medical research team led by Yacoub had grown part of a human heart valve from stem cells. Chain of Hope. In 1995, Yacoub founded the charity Chain of Hope, through which he continued to operate on children. He is also the head of the Magdi Yacoub Global Heart Foundation, co-founded with Ahmed Zewail and Ambassador Mohammed Shaker in 2008, which launched the Aswan Heart Project.